In this video, we're going to share what badminton equipment you need and don't need.
Yeah, we're going to rate everything on a scale from 1 to 10 on how much they'll help your performance, how much they'll help you reduce injuries, and how much they'll help your style. We'll then use these to give you a final overall importance rating. Of course, this will change depending if you're a beginner, intermediate or advanced player. So keep watching to find out what you need.
So to start, we have a racket. Obviously you need a badminton racket to play badminton. The only question is, with over 200 different rackets available, what should you buy?
Well, we recently made an in-depth video on this, which we'll link below. But in short, if you're a beginner, you don't always need the most expensive racket. However, you should invest more than getting the budget one from the local supermarket if possible. Making this initial investment will give you a nice, lightweight, flexible racket to develop with, which is what most beginners typically need.
As you improve and become an intermediate or advanced player, you'll move on to something more stiff, and also, unfortunately, often more expensive. The most important thing as you get into these top-of-the-range rackets is to find a racket that suits you and your playing style. Again, you can watch our video on that if you want to learn more.
So, how important is a racket for your performance? Well, obviously you need one to play, so it would be a 10 out of 10. But in terms of how important getting the right racket for you is, we're going to rate this 8 out of 10.
How much is a racket going to help prevent any injuries? Well, choosing a racket that's too stiff or too heavy can increase the risk of shoulder and elbow injuries. So we're going to rate this a 7 out of 10.
And how much will it help your style? There are some beautiful rackets out there. 7 out of 10.
So what is the overall importance rating? Well, we're going to say an 8 out of 10. Now feel free to make a racket in the comments if you disagree with this, and stay tuned to see if we actually rate anything an overall 10 out of 10. But let's now move on to item number 2, the strings.
Similar to a racket, you obviously need some strings to play badminton. A lot of rackets come with string in them, but if you're looking to level up the performance of your racket, we'd recommend getting it restrung when you buy it.
This can become overwhelming quite quickly, but generally we'd recommend beginners getting their racket strung with a thicker string of around 0.7 millimeters and a maximum tension of 24 pounds or 11 kilograms. For intermediate players, we'd recommend a tension of around 24 to 27 pounds and advanced players 27 pounds and upwards, both with a string thickness of 0.61 millimeters to 0.7 millimeters.
These recommendations are for two main reasons. One, lower tensions increase the size of the sweet spot, meaning it's more forgiving on your body and shoulder if you don't play regularly. A bigger sweet spot also means that if you don't hit the centre of the strings every time, your shot quality won't be impacted as much.
And two, a thicker string and a lower tension means that if you don't consistently hit the sweet spot, then you're less likely to break the string, helping you save some money.
The string and tension you choose will also depend on your personal preference, and we have a whole article on our website going into detail on this. And as with everything we mentioned in this video, we'll leave a link in the description below if you want to check that out. So, what are we rating strings?
Well, in terms of performance, they are important, and we'd much prefer to use a worse racket with good strings than a good racket with bad strings. 9 out of 10.
For injury prevention, if you have them too tight, it can be bad for your elbow or shoulder. So we'll rate this 7 out of 10. And for the style, it's not very important, but you can get nice colours. 5 out of 10.
So for the overall importance rating of strings, we're going to go 8 out of 10. But let's not string this section out too long. Time to move on to our third item.
Staying on the racket, we have grips. There are generally 3 different types of grips: a spongy grip, an over grip which is thinner, and then a toweling grip. When choosing your grip, you need to consider 2 things. First is your hand size. Generally, if you have smaller hands, you would have a thinner grip. And the second thing is your personal preference. For example, I like to use an over grip, whereas Greg prefers toweling grip. You can use the original grip that the racket comes with. Just be careful it isn't too slippery. You don't want to be letting go of your racket mid-shot.
Okay, on to the ratings. So for performance, we're going to rate it 7 out of 10. For injury prevention, well, having your grip too thin or too thick can cause elbow and wrist injuries. And your racket could hit your partner if it's too slippery. So we're going to go a 7 out of 10 again.
And how much is it going to help your style? Not loads, 3 out of 10. So for the overall importance for grips, we're going to rate them a 6 out of 10. Now you've got a grip on that, let's drop it down to our feet and discuss shoes.
Badminton is a physically demanding sport, and because of the constant lunging, jumping and changes of direction, it's very demanding on your feet. So, having a good pair of cushioned and supportive shoes is really important.
Now, we wouldn't say there's such thing as a beginner pair of badminton shoes, apart from maybe your casual running shoe, which we'd definitely avoid. But there are low range and higher range shoes.
Yeah, in general, the higher range shoes will give you better grip, be more durable because of the better quality materials and technology, usually be more comfortable, and also give you more support. All of this will definitely help your performance, giving you both the ability and confidence to move fast around the court.
Now, we know these higher specs often come with a higher price, but if given the choice of a $30 shoe that you need to replace every 2 months, or a $120 shoe that lasts you 12 months, and it's better for your body, and it can help you move faster, what would you choose? We know which we'd go for.
Yeah, and the last thing we'd say, as we're trying to keep these sections short, is that it's important to check that a shoe can't easily bend or twist, as this shows it will support your foot when you're jumping and quickly changing direction. So, on to the ratings.
For the performance, we're going to rate shoes 8 out of 10, as they'll give you the cushioning, support and grip that you need. But how much are shoes going to help prevent any injuries?
Well, this is our first 10 out of 10. A good pair of badminton shoes really can minimise a lot of different injuries, from foot, knee and ankle injuries to blisters. And what about the style?
Again, a nice pair of shoes can definitely elevate your on-court style. 8 out of 10. Therefore, our overall importance rating for shoes is 9 out of 10.
So now you know to choose a good pair of badminton shoes, let's move on to our next item to see if anything else will beat this score.
Our next piece of badminton equipment is shuttles. From plastics to hybrids to feathers, there's a lot of choice. Plastic shuttles are typically more beginner friendly. This is because beginners will likely be mishitting the shuttle more, so plastics are a much more durable option. But what should you use if you're not a beginner?
Well, we'd always recommend feathers as their performance is much better. And this isn't to say that beginners can't use feathers, but do be warned, you will break a lot of them. We've made an entire video on feather shuttles where we tested 10 different shuttles at various price points, so again, we'll link that below if you want to watch it after this.
So, for the ratings, similar to a racket, shuttles are of course 100% necessary to be able to play. But for us, we'd rate the performance of plastic shuttles as a 4 out of 10, and feather shuttles, which is what we use, from a 6 to a 9 out of 10, depending on the quality. So we'll average that out at 7.5.
And can shuttles prevent any injuries? Well, technically yes. If you have a shuttle speed that's too slow, you're going to need to use your shoulder muscles a lot more, which can lead to stiff muscles and potentially even injuries. So we'll go a 4 out of 10.
And can shuttles help your style? Well, it's been known for certain people to look down on others for using plastic shuttles, and you don't want to be using a battered one or even be seen taking one from the bin.
That was a throwback. We'll give the style 6 out of 10 and the overall importance 7 out of 10.
So let's put a lid on shuttles and move on to our next item, clothing.
Yeah, and for this and the next item, we're going to go straight into the ratings with a little description of each. So, can clothing help your performance?
Well, we're going to give it a 2 out of 10. A nice t-shirt or a pair of shorts isn't going to help your performance much, but a good pair of socks actually is kind of important. And this brings us on to injury prevention, which we're going to rate a 3 out of 10. This is because having a good pair of socks and frequently changing them can help you avoid blisters.
Frequently changing your clothes can also prevent injuries. When we were training in Thailand, I once forgot a spare pair of shorts and had to stop training after just an hour as I was sweating that much I was creating puddles on the court.
Okay, back to the ratings. And your clothing does play the biggest part in your style, and style matters to some people. Look good, feel good, play good. So we'll give style 10 out of 10, but an overall importance rating of 4 out of 10.
Now let's put a sock in it and move on to the off-court badminton equipment that may or may not help you on the court. Firstly, badminton bags. How important are these for your performance?
Well, the main aim of this is to be a convenient way to transport your rackets and the other badminton equipment we've discussed to and from playing badminton. And they do also help protect your rackets and string, as long as you don't leave it in a cold place, because this can make your strings break easier. But for a performance rating, we're looking at a 1 out of 10.
Okay, but can it reduce the risk of injury? Well, if you're cycling to training without a bag and carrying 2 rackets, a pair of shoes and some shuttles, then it might be a good idea to get a bag. But in all seriousness, for injury rating, assuming you're not being a silly cyclist, 1 out of 10. But again, we're going to rate the style quite high at an 8 out of 10, as a good bag does make you look more pro. This gives us an overall importance rating of a 3 out of 10.
Now you know that bagging a good bag maybe shouldn't be your highest priority. Let's keep the ball rolling and move on to the next item, a massage ball / foam roller.
We believe every serious badminton player should have one of these in their badminton bag, if you have one.
Yeah, as we said earlier, badminton is a physically demanding sport, so being able to quickly loosen off your quads before playing or help your glutes recover after a tough match is so important. These aren't items that are specifically made for badminton. We've seen some players use golf balls, and we've even used our Badminton Insight bottle if we've ever forgotten our massage ball.
Badminton Insight bottle, by the way, performance and injury reduction 9 out of 10, as hydration is crucial. And style, we're going to say 10 out of 10. If you want to get one, we'll leave a link in the description below, and don't bottle it.
Anyway, back to our massage ball and foam roller. Performance, 7 out of 10. Injury prevention, we're going to give it an 8 out of 10. But style, 1 out of 10. And we're going to give these items an overall importance rating of 7 out of 10.
Now, onto a quick fire round of items that we think are important to carry with you, but didn't warrant their own section in this video.
Scissors for cutting your strings out if they break to reduce the tension on your frame.
A TheraBand for warming up and also strengthening your muscles.
A towel which has the dual use of wiping your sweat, but also you can add water and use it as a foot towel if your floor is really slippy. Just don't use the same one for your face.
And some deodorant. You don't want to put off your partner. And there were no overall 10 out of 10s, we hear you say. And you're right, as much as equipment matters, nothing can substitute hard work and purposeful practice. So don't develop the infamous gear acquisition syndrome.
Hopefully you've now got an insight into what you need and maybe don't need to buy. And if you're in search of any of these items, then check out our sponsor, Sakura Sport. And you can save yourself a huge 10% by using our discount code Badminton Insight at checkout. But before you do that, make sure you smash the subscribe button if you haven't already, give the video a like if you've enjoyed it, and we'll hopefully see you on another one very soon. Bye!